Living Adaptive.
The goal is to adapt and thrive despite the adversity you face.
You're going to have that little voice inside of you trying to push yourself.
I set a vision for myself, and now I'm seeing it come to fruition.
I'm grateful for losing my leg.
There's just some things you must endure in life.
You might crash.
You can find a purpose in your suffering.
I'm not going to stop.
You do everything you possibly can.
We want to change the world.
I'm going to adapt to it and make it the way it works for me.
Take what it is from life that you want and enjoy it.
What's up, everybody? This is Living Adaptive, and this is Scott Davidson. You can find us on the show notes, so our social media links like living_adaptive on Instagram. We're on YouTube now, so all you audio people, head over to YouTube if you want to get a visual of what's going on, because we have a lot of videos that we overlay on these shows. Today, we've got a really remarkable guest. I mean, she's an athlete to the fullest, adventure athlete, triathlete, para-triathlete, a champ in that realm too. And also, most importantly, at least to me, is she's a disability advocate and advocate in general. Wait a second. I got to stop this interview real quick. I'm about to not just interview an athlete with an incredible story. I'm about to interview someone fighting for disability rights, and she's taking this fight to the doors of the U.S. Senate and House.
Okay, currently running between meetings, between the House and the Senate, passing the Capitol here, and having a great time meeting with our state reps. Woo!
All right, let's resume this show and finish this introduction. Nicole Ver Kuilen on. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me on.
Nicole, let's not even wait a second. Let's get right into this. Why is mobility a right? Because you talk about this a ton.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you asked this question. And I think it takes, you can look at it from a philosophical perspective, you can look at it from an economical perspective, but really what it comes down to, and really what I want to define for people is, what is a human right? A human right is rights that are inherent to all human beings, and there's nothing more inherent or fundamental about humans than our freedom of movement, our mobility. And this is something that, dates precedes the U.S. Constitution, precedes any nation being founded since, human beings were on Earth. And it's also something that is embedded in, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I mean, this is something that is, stated that humans should have the right to physical mobility. But, the important part of defining, what's the point of defining, a right, and why does that matter? I mean, that's really what it comes down to in terms of a social contract that we have agreed upon within America. We're this free society, and so we inherently say that people should have rights. People should have, freedom of movement, freedom to access whatever they need. I mean, if you look at any of the, major sayings that we have in America, the slogans, land of the free is embedded in this parent agreement that people should have freedom. And, human rights aren't something that we earn, it's something that people are born with, and when we see that someone doesn't have access to that right, that we should provide that for everyone. And as I mentioned, mobility, having access to mobility, it's not merely a human right, although that's, important aspect for many people to recognize. But it's also deeply embedded in the foundation of a healthy economy. And that's the part that, I think we can look at it in many different ways, but maybe some people don't recognize. If someone doesn't have the ability to move around, to get to their job, to be, active and have a productive, social life and family life, that is hurting our economy. And that's one of the biggest aspects in terms of disability rights that has gone on and been farly ignored for 30 plus years since the founding of the ADA, is the unemployment rates for this country, specifically for the disability community, that have not improved whatsoever.
It's a very aggressive mission what you're doing. You started a nonprofit called Forrest Stump, which I love because I'm doing a reverse Forrest Gump type of thing. I'm putting braces back on. I'm not, I'm running and we're adding the braces instead. So we're just going to reverse that a little bit. So I love the name of Forrest Stump. But your advocacy, I mean, I'm looking at my notes here. You have this hashtag called "We Just Felt Like Running." And it's a pretty impressive movement what you're doing here. What is this all about? This whole "just felt like running," because it goes beyond like what you're talking about, unemployment and a lot of things going on. Now we're talking dynamic mobility too.
Right, exactly. And that's the part with We Just Felt Like Running, again, a play on, Forrest Gump, and kind of looking at that film and his responses, why are you running across the country? Why are you doing this epic quest? And, his response was just kind of this simple, like, oh, well, I just felt like running. And to break that down and to show that, the disability community feels like running as well, but we have extra barriers that it takes in order to get to that level. And so it's a privilege in a sense to say that you just feel like running and that you can go out and walk out of your house and just go do it. For our community, we face, all types of barriers to being able to do that. And specifically, blatant discrimination from insurance companies that deny access to prosthetic technology, to orthotics, like the dynamic braces that you talked about, to sports wheelchairs, saying that all of those things are not medically necessary. And as a result, they don't cover them, but they're prohibitively expensive. But that is what our community relies upon in order to be physically active. And so we just felt like running is a way to call attention to that issue, to call attention to this blatant discrimination, and to have a campaign as part of that to kind of rally the community around this together through a virtual race that's going to be taking place on October 3rd, asking people to help us run from Seattle to Washington, D.C., 2,758 miles in one day, kind of exploring that epic quest that Forrest Gump did originally, but putting a spin on it, an advocacy spin, and doing something really unique where we are going to be delivering a petition to Congress that day, a signed petition. And that's why we need people to sign up for the race as well as sign our petition. And our petition specifically addresses Congress to acknowledge the right for individuals with disabilities to have access to exercise, to have access to this assisted technology, and to eliminate these barriers that we face on a daily basis.
So we're organizing a team. Living Adaptive will organize a team, and we'll get 1/3 of those 2,000 miles, not 1/3 of the 2,000, 1/3 of 1 mile. We're going to cover for you. We got your back on that. The rest, you're on your own. On a serious note, though, I've encountered, specifically in my area, I've encountered a lot of difficulties when it comes to coverage for dynamic AFOs. A lot of times, it's not just the insurance, it's the provider, it's the mega clinics, the mega device clinics that make it very difficult. In my area, it would be the dynamic AFOs, and some of these dynamic AFO vendors and companies invented under, for other purposes, maybe it's wounded veterans or something, and they're funded under that, and then they take the product and go somewhere else, and then it's very difficult for us to do that because it's built out in a certain way and paired up in certain things. How often, from the prosthetic side, do you find the same issues?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are, and it really comes down, there's a lot of aspects to it. I mean, it really comes down to the policies, and it comes down to the way that things are billed and coded as part of the system. And the complexity of the billing system for prosthetics makes it really confusing for individuals who are part of that. And I don't necessarily want to, go all into the different L code system as part of prosthetics, but yeah, it's become something that's so expensive that without insurance coverage, people cannot have access to this. And, to break it down in terms of expense, a basic walking prosthesis for a below knee amputee is around $15,000. For someone who's an above knee amputee, they're missing both their knee and their ankle, which is the critical components of a prosthesis for them. It can range anywhere between $60,000 to $100,000. I mean, it's really expensive technology. And the key thing here is that no one prosthesis can replace what the human body can do. I mean, there have been so many films, so many narratives that keep pressing this idea of a bionic body, of a cyborg body. That is not the case. My body is not cyborg. I sweat, my prosthesis falls off, I get sores on my skin. There is so much further that we need to go, and there's no way that my prosthesis replaces or is even better than what my right leg can do. And that's first of all, that we need to be having that conversation, because as a result of people thinking that the prosthetic technology is further along than what it really is, because of individuals like Oscar Pistorius, them questioning whether he has an unfair advantage.
Unfair advantage, yep.
Right, exactly. That's not the case. Prosthetics don't provide an unfair advantage. It's actually a unfair disadvantage to not have access to the prosthetics you need and to not have access to a running blade. And so, basic level prosthesis doesn't provide someone access to what they need to run or to bike. It requires multiple limbs to be able to replace that functionality. I mean, we know how amazing and how incredible the human body is. And to think that we've already replaced and been able to come up with something that replaces that full functionality. I mean, we're far from that. And, same sort of thing, dynamic braces. I'm sure you've had this experience as well, but it can range anywhere between, $2,000 to $9,000 and not covered. People can't afford that out of pocket, especially if it's something that you're having to replace every, 3 to 5
3
years.
to 5 years. You made a really difficult decision when you're 10 years old. I rarely have somebody that has gone through cancer at such a young age and then you're at where you're at right now. And the whole process behind it. In fact, I know people, I've interviewed people that passed away after losing their leg, cancer has taken them. And that was early on when we started this show. There's some really difficult cases and there's others that are thriving right now with the cancer. And so hearing your story is really remarkable. And this is kind of a heavy question. And I didn't give this to you ahead of time, so people can't say that you're prepared for it. But like, what has it all taught you about like life in general to go through so much and then to find a way to thrive? What is this like all this adversity taught you?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it has taught me that, humans are capable of doing way more than what we even think that we're able to do. The resiliency that's built into us as humans. And when we're faced with an obstacle, that we can overcome it. I mean, at the end of the day, what it takes is a positive mindset. I mean, that's really what gets you through anything is your mindset. And I would say that a lot of people would think I'm a very positive person, which I am, but I am also human and I have those days where I feel really down and I feel, man, it would be nice to have two legs today, or, I'm in a lot of pain right now. And it's a constant battle to keep yourself in a positive mindset, to be grateful for what you have and to really, reframe your life. And I think that part of going through cancer and really the part of choosing to have an amputation, knowing that it would save my life, is what really gave me the strength to make that decision. And a lot of people, they might not feel that they have the choice or the power to, decide to have an amputation. And so they might feel differently about, losing their limb. Like if it happened in an accident, they might feel like blaming someone else or something like that. But really, if they're able to kind of relook at the situation and kind of reframe it in a way that empowers themselves and empowers their position, it really allows you to do some incredible stuff with your life. And that, it was definitely a difficult decision at that time,
Oh yeah.
being 10 years old, to decide to amputate. And it was a very difficult decision for my family as well. My parents were divorced at the time, and so they had to, find a way to come together to make that decision. And, they were split on the issue. My dad didn't want to amputate, and my mom did. And ultimately, the doctors, our oncologists, had to come kind of in between them and say, this is Nicole's decision. What does she want to do? So I'm really glad that I had an amazing group of oncologists at the Mayo Clinic that were so far ahead of their time. And I feel like at the end of the day is what allowed me to thrive and survive. There's been so many people that I've seen that have had, that currently have osteosarcoma, and we've lost them. And so that gives me, a renewed perspective every single day of the importance of life and what makes life worth living, and really why I'm here.
You do very intense things. Like, what is it about the adaptive community, especially adaptive athlete community, that we got to go climb 20,000 feet, that we got to run 1,500 miles, triathlons and stuff? Because I'm guilty. I'm super guilty. Like, if there's a challenge to deliver like 40 babies in an hour, I'm in. Like, whatever it takes to like try and break a threshold. What is it about that? And what gets you up each day to go conquer these things?
Yeah, I think it's honestly, it's a combination of things. I think living in our society currently with a disability requires that you have to have much greater mental fortitude, strength, resiliency, ability to adapt than any other person, really. I mean, to be able to get through each and every day, to be able to get to where you need to go, to do your work, to set goals. I mean, you have to go above and beyond just the way that our society is set up and all the barriers that we have to move past. I mean, we are at, I would say the disability community is absolutely incredible for having to do that. And so I think we're more prepared than anyone else to set these really big goals and to go after them and want to accomplish them. And I think that's really exciting. I would also say that on the flip side, there's kind of this compensation aspect that I've felt too, where, someone might meet me for the first time and assume that I am not able to be as active as they are, just by looking at me, not knowing what I've accomplished in my life, not knowing that I've climbed a volcano, not knowing that I've done a 1,500-mile triathlon. They kind of approach me with this attitude of like, well, if you can do it, I can do it type of thing, which really puts me on a lower bar. And I think for a lot of us, we're feeling like we constantly have to compensate for that negative view from society. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, that we don't have to necessarily go out and do all these crazy things because, at the end of the day, if it's something that inspires you, then yes, go do it for you. But don't do it because you feel like you need to prove something to anyone else. Like, you are of value. You are, inherently just an amazing person just for being you. So, but it's something that I love to do because I love pushing myself. I love being active. I feel like I'm a kinesthetic learner in so many ways. And it's just something that no matter what sport it is, I just love to go out there and do it.
Yeah, you compete so much. You remind me of Kelly Bruno. Kelly Bruno is a fellow triathlete, amputee, and she just goes after it. She works so hard. And that was somebody I was like, these two kind of pair together. Like, not only are you both competing so heavily, but you're also going after it professionally. You for advocacy, her as a medical doctor, and doing her own things. You know what I mean? You know, you have a regular life. You're like a normal person. People might not get that. Like, you're not a cyborg. What is everyday life like for you outside of competing, outside of going to Congress? I mean, you're trying to change the goddamn world. Like, do you actually have downtime and you hang out and do normal things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to give off the impression for someone else who is trying to do all these things at once that balls do get dropped. It is hard to juggle everything at once, but it is so important to find balance in your life and to have those moments of, regular, humanness. I watch Parks and Rec. I love Leslie Knope, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's my daily or weekly, inspiration of laughter to kind of keep things, easy and lighthearted. I go on walks with my family. We go to the movies. We do stuff on a regular basis that, are just what everyone else does, cook at home, those types of things.
Does your partner get sick of all that, your partner or your mom? Because like they're in your movie. They're in the movie that Silver Line Films or something produced it. And
no, they actually, but yeah.
Yeah. Do they get tired of the constant drive? Like, do they want you to slow down a little bit?
I would say sometimes they do, definitely. But I think by now, I mean, my mom definitely knows that that's just a part of who I am. That's always that's been a part of me forever. Even before, I lost my leg to cancer. I've always been someone who's been so driven. I remember, it was my mom's birthday. I think I was in like third or fourth grade. And, she said, "Hey, would you want to stay home with me for my birthday and, skip school?" And I was like, "No, Mom, I've got to go to school. Like, this is something really important." So, I mean, that's just been something that's really ingrained in me, since the very beginning. But yeah, I remember when, we'd just gotten back from doing the 1,500-mile triathlon, with Natalie. We're back at home, kind of setting up our apartments. And, because that whole thing is like, I, quit my job in Michigan, moved out to Seattle, and literally like the next day, did this 2-month journey down the coast. So like we hadn't even settled into our apartment at that point. And so that's when I asked her, like, "Hey, I just got this call from LP at Romp. Don't really know who she is, but she's asked us to climb a volcano.
That's so
Would you be in?" And she just looked at me like, are you crazy? You want to do that now? And I was like, yeah, we got to do this. It's another step in terms of this journey and partnering with an amazing organization that's raising awareness and, challenging the status quo. So, and it ended up being, the same sort of situation where we moved to an apartment, didn't even get settled, and then flew to Ecuador and did the climb. So it's been, on the go for 3 years.
Yeah, I can't imagine it changing for you. Well, you're trying to change this world. Well, you're trying to bring us mobility, bring the home team some mobility, and all of that, like what that all encompasses. What is the biggest roadblocks you're hitting? I'm really curious about like what is stopping this advocacy.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Well, I'd say, and kind of with the question you asked in terms of like the, most frustrating thing about disability, I want to be clear, having a disability in and of itself is not the most frustrating thing. It's living in a society that treats you differently, that withholds access from opportunities for you, that really treats you as a second class citizen. That's the most challenging part of having a disability. And I think that's, an inherent piece of Forrest Stump is saying that it's not our disability that disables us. It's these healthcare policies that restrict access to what we need, to live these healthy lives. And, right now it's very, I think the biggest thing that's keeping us from, changing this narrative is having a movement of people, from the ground, this grassroots movement, having enough people care about this issue and saying that this needs to change and knowing that it's even an issue. When I started 3 years ago, not only did people not know it was an issue, but the people who did know that this was a problem had this view of it in the sense of, well, running's a luxury. That's not something that we're ever going to change. And so they kind of had that in their mindset of like, this isn't going to change. And it has been constantly beating this new narrative of like, no, this isn't a luxury. This is a fundamental human right to have exercise, to have physical activity. And that's when we really kind of started changing the way that we talked about it. It's not about the technology, it's about access to physical activity and mobility. And that is a fundamental human right that cannot be denied. And the research behind physical activity, how it benefits someone socially, mentally, physically, it's all there. And so it's become clear that this is blatant discrimination from insurance companies not providing access. And insurance companies, as we know, are, kind of the big mammoth that we're going to have to tackle. I mean, they've got lots of money, they've got lots of lobbying power, they've got, their hands in many pockets in DC, and that's something that we're going to have to fight against. But the case is very clear. I mean, it's a very bipartisan issue to talk about physical activity and mobility. It's not super controversial, and the research is there to prove that having access to physical activity saves us money, saves healthcare dollars, puts people back into work, actually increases employment in the disability community, prevents disease, helps with mental health, helps with social inclusion. I mean, it just it's a fight that we have the support for. And the thing that I want to kind of emphasize to people who might not understand the kind of tangible aspect of this discrimination, I think a lot of times people fly around the word discrimination without really understanding it. So let me break it down in terms of what's actually going on here. So an individual who has orthosis or a prosthesis or uses a sports wheel or uses a wheelchair, when they go to their doctor, they are just provided, a regular standard prosthesis or orthosis that kind of gets them through everyday activities. Very expensive. That's all the insurance will cover. If they want something additional that provides them the flexibility to be active, to do sports, to do physical activity, whatever it might be, those are all denied by insurance, saying that it's not medically necessary. Yet at the same time, all the major insurance companies, Cigna, Primera, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Kaiser Permanente, Aetna, you name it, every single one of them sponsors half marathons, 5Ks, encourages the people that are part of their plans to go be active, to go run. This is healthy for you. This is going to reduce costs. That's why they do it. And in the same breath, they're saying that running is good for these people, but they deny access to it for the disability community. And then if you take it a step further and look at, what does insurance companies, what do they provide for able-bodied individuals to get them back into sport? You look at ACL tears, you look at UCL tears. ACL tears, ACL injuries are very common for individuals playing sports, basketball, whatever it might be. I'm sure you've heard of other people who have had ACL tears. They go in, they get surgery, they're able to go back into sport. 150,000 of these happen in the US every single year. And it costs the United States more than $500 billion in healthcare expenses. So if insurance companies can pay for able-bodied individuals to have their ACL replaced so that they can go back to being active, so that they can run, so that they can play sports, then why aren't they providing access to the disability community to what they need to be active and to play sports? It's a different treatment. It's a prosthesis or an orthosis or a wheelchair. It's not a surgery, but it's the same thing. So at the end of the day, that's the discrimination that we're talking about. And we need to be, upset with this as a society, as a community, that the disability community is not being treated right.
Yeah, we've seen this. I mean, when you spoke about the idea of like an insurance company is going to go sponsor a marathon, and then they're going to go play the highlight of the amputee finishing that marathon. And a
Right.
lot of organizations use our images a lot, and that includes within our adaptive world, and device companies use the image a lot. They don't pay the athletes, they don't support them, yet you'll see them all over their social media. And I'm speaking specifically about my world with dynamic AFOs, and I know plenty. Most of my friends are amputees of some nature, and so like I see that all the time there, and it's amazing, within the community how it's not helping, the people that supply our products, and then you raise it up to insurance, where insurance is just a wicked animal that we're dealing with all the time. It's interesting to hear your perspective. The way you break it down is better than I've ever heard breaking down before. So that was awesome to get a chance to see that. I want to jump into this though. This is a little bit off of where we're at, but going into you, like you talk so eloquently and you advocate so much, and it brings so much passion to you. And your life is so full of many events and endeavors that are so amazing. And a lot of people want to know, how can I be like Nicole? How can I have a life that's filled like this to be able to do this? What makes you a winner? Like, what is it that got you from a 10-year-old? I have an 11-year-old son. I can't imagine him having to go through what you went through, and like, and go through all that. And now here you are all these years later doing all this shit, all this amazing stuff. What has made you successful that you didn't just lay down and just give up?
Yeah, I mean, my support system has been incredible. I mean, specifically my mom. Like, my mom is my life coach. She, picks me up when I'm on the floor crying. I mean, those things happen. I mean, the behind the scenes of being an advocate. I mean, it's intense. It's challenging. It's been quite a sacrifice as well. I mean, a financial sacrifice, a sacrifice in my time, all that type of thing. But I mean, you can look at it as a sacrifice, or you can look at it as an incredible opportunity to be more aligned with your purpose here on earth. I mean, at the end of the day, you can either be focused on accumulating wealth that you'll then, die and somehow pass along, or you can be committed to changing society as it currently stands and hoping for a better country, a better nation, a better world for people in the future. And that's, something that I think is priceless. And it is challenging though to, live in a society that is so, driven by economics, driven by wealth accumulation, driven by status, to take a step back and say, what is it really that I want to leave a legacy for? What is it that I want to have aligned with my purpose here on earth? And it definitely, is a challenging process, but I would say my support system, my mom, my partner, Natalie, they've been incredibly supportive. Kathleen, who joined us on the coast, down the coast. I mean, every aspect of my friends. I mean, I've been really, really lucky to have people in my life that have been placed in my life to support me and to encourage my goals and my dreams, and to tell me to, forget the haters, forget the people who are, saying that this can't be done. or are trying to discourage change from happening, and who are there to kind of pick me up when the challenging times come around.
We can't touch on everything you do here. It's going to be impossible to touch on everything that's going on. But one thing we can say is that you can join your squad. Like when I say you, the people that we're talking to you that are watching or listening right now, is that you could join this squad. You don't have to be sit there and watch and hope that this works out. You can actually get there, pound the pavement, be part of the squad, make a difference, change the world. ADA was 30 years ago. We talked about it a lot on July 26th. Your romp crew, my romp crew that we roll with, they've done a lot of advocacy that was really fun. And you're going after the same thing in terms of advocacy. And it's awesome to see these teams come together, and we want everybody to join the team. You don't have to sit there and wait for something to come to you. It's on your lap. How do they join up with you? How do we become like Team Forrest Stump,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Scott, in terms of advocacy in general. It requires people. It requires every single person coming together, figuring out, what can I offer this movement? And I think we really saw an amazing example of that as part of the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, individuals, these organizations, had been working on the ground for years and years and years, trying to get to the level of breaking through, kind of that tipping point of having so many people behind them that it became a national issue. And there are so many things, obviously, that led up to that, but there are so many incredible advocates behind that mission, behind that movement, that have been able to bring it to light. And whether, you're an artist, whether you're a speaker, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a lawyer, whatever, your passion, your talent is, you can bring that to this movement. We can find a way for you to help benefit it. And a way to join right now is part of our We Just Felt Like Running campaign. Go to either our website, forreststump.org, or check out my Instagram at runforreststump. Click the links and join up. Sign up to race with us, sign our petition. And we've also got a link on my Instagram that has a number of different action steps that you can take to get involved. One of them being writing your senators. So that's something that, are little steps that people can take. And if people want to get more involved, reach out to me and let's find a way to plug you in and have you help as part of this movement.
It's an amazing movement. I'm jumping in, I'm running, we got a team going out, and we're just going to keep pushing, because I'm out there too, and I'm pushing for my side of the house, meaning dynamic AFOs and things like that. You're pushing for the prosthetic side and dynamic. You're pushing for it all. And I want to merge. I don't want to sit there and cater to my own team, although it's selfish, because I want to do what you're doing. My feet are getting tired. Do you think, by the way, I could hang with you for like a micro triathlon, like maybe?
Oh, totally. You want to do like a mini sprint?
Yeah, like a really mini sprint, like a real
Let's do it.
Yeah, that would be.
Any level would be fun.
Yeah, I'm not a good swimmer yet. My legs don't float. They're getting better though. Bob Babbitt hooked me up with a coach, so let's see what happens.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's something I realized from the get-go. Originally, it was from my perspective of being an amputee and focusing on prosthetics. But as I started to meet other athletes and other people in the disability community, I realized, this is the same issue for all of us. Like, we're stronger together. So that's what this is about.
Yeah, unify and empower. Well, we thank you for being here, Nicole. We're going to be putting your social media notes everywhere. I hope everybody listening reaches out, joins the team, runs with us, whatever, just do your part here. Come in here and be part of this. So really appreciate you being here. Can't wait till you climb whatever mountain next and run across Europe or whatever the hell is on your list after this. It's a lot. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Remember, go to livingadaptive.com to find previous episodes, show notes, contacts for guests like this guest, links to social media accounts, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. Peace.